Oftentimes, the ARCA Menards Series is one to get dunked on social media and in the real world. From the discrepancy of competition, lack of field size, and minuscule numbers of competitive cars, it's safe to say that the series has seen better days overall. Many teams and well-known names have left the series over the years, and it just doesn't hold some of the excitement that people remembered from years ago. However, there are some gems in there that we do need to acknowledge. One of them came last year at the 2022 finale at Toledo Speedway. A year-long battle between two drivers and two teams for a chance at titles that set up a heck of a finale. This is a look back. Before we get to crowning the champions, though, we need to understand the cast of characters participating. Our series battle takes us to two different drivers, Daniel Dye and Nick Sanchez. Both had insane seasons and fought hard, and both are rookies looking for the title. Dye has proven he's a winner, taking the victory in Berlin in 2021 and running a full East schedule, coming home second in points. This year, though, he's hungry and he's looking for the title in 2022. His main adversary, though, Nick Sanchez, looks to put up a fight. The fellow Floridian and development driver has been around for a bit, making his ARCA Menards Series East debut back in 2019 with Rev Racing. Since that day at South Boston, the young gun has worked his way up and is now ready to fight for the 2022 ARCA Championship. Heading into Toledo, the two drivers have had somewhat polar opposite seasons. Dye has been nothing but consistent with just 2 DNFs this season, with one coming at the last lap of Berlin with an electrical issue, but he was still able to finish 7th. Going into the last race, his worst non-DNF finish is 8th. Meanwhile, Sanchez has had a little bit more of an up season. He's also been around that top 5 near Dye's finishes, but in juxtaposition to Dye's DNFs, Sanchez has 3 wins on the year at Talladega, Kansas, and Michigan. Now, with the title on the line, just 2 points separate the drivers. But before we can continue the story, we must meet our other 2 characters in this play. These 2 aren't just drivers or crew members, though. These are 2 whole teams. The Venturini Motorsports number 20 and the Kyle Busch Motorsports number 18. Most everyone will tell you that the owner's title is where the big bucks are in the ARCA Menards series, hence why there aren't a lot of full-time drivers but full-time teams. For the last 2 years, the number 18 has won the owner's title, including being the 20 car by 37 points in 2021. This year, though, it's kind of been an all-out war. The season started out in favor for Venturini, with the season opener win at Daytona going to driver Corey Heim in the number 20, and the number 18 wrecking out with Drew Dollar behind the wheel. Tempers would flare and cars would tangle a few weeks later, though, at Kansas, and giving us one of the best interviews in recent memory from Billy Venturini.
Well, I mean, I know how David Gilliland feels. Like, Drew wrecks all your shit when he's driving for you, and then he wrecks it all when he's racing against you. So I can understand why he punched him in the eye over at Bristol last year.
And while Venturini started strong, KBM's number 18 would come back in a big way with the young rookie Sammy Smith behind the wheel. Going into the finale at Toledo, he won 4 races, including back-to-backs at Salem and Bristol. So there it is. We have our 4 characters and the story is set, but there's still a lot of narrative left in this. Race day has come for the ARCA Menards series as the 2022 season looks to come to a close. But before the green flag is even flown, there's a lot happening for 2 of our characters in the story. Nick Sanchez is already behind after having to change engines during practice. He's not phased though, saying that now this makes his job easier. Meanwhile, the VMS 20 and KBM 18 are now tied in owners' points after Jesse Loeb grabbed the pole for the race. As the green flag finally flies on the day and we get the race underway, Daniel Dye is doing what he needs to do to beat Sanchez. He's running second through the first part of the race while Sanchez sits back in 6th and not really doing too much to make gains. Meanwhile, Love and the 20 are holding point on the field, with Sammy Smith keeping him just within reach in 5th. However, as they inch closer to that first race break, Smith has worked his way up to 2nd now. Sanchez still was behind the ball, though, as Dye was ahead of him. After pit stops, though, the table starts to turn a little. Rev Racing and Nick Sanchez made the call to stay out and lead laps. Staying out on old tires with 50 laps to the next race break was a risk to take to try and win the title. Meanwhile, issues start to hit for Daniel Dye in the 43 car. After having to get a push to restart the car, he's fallen back outside the top 10, and he'll need to work hard to gain back all that ground he lost. As the drivers make their way through the next run, Dye gets his head down and his foot to the floor, coming from 15th to 7th as the second race break falls. Oh yeah, he's also behind Nick Sanchez now as the caution flies. After pit stops, though, things get a little bit wild, as Nick Sanchez's team changed the battery on pit road to try and attempt to fix a starting issue. He would need a push to get going, but he was able to keep continuing the race. Off the restart, though, things aren't looking great for him in the number 2 car, as Dye is able to get back by. It's all on the line now, as it looks like Daniel Dye is about to set sail outside of Nick Sanchez's windshield and run away with the title. Then, on lap 134, the unthinkable happens for Dye and the 43 team. Dye runs high in turns 3 and 4 as Sanchez blows by and the caution flies for a spin in turn 1. After having an issue earlier and changing a left rear shock on pit road, the 43 team believes there's a greater issue with the suspension on the car now. As Dye drives the car down pit road, it's clear there's something wrong as the right front is cambered all the way in. As the laps go by under yellow and the team works on the car, it becomes clear the chances at a title are now gone for Daniel Dye. A season of pure consistency with an average finish of 6.4, but it's not enough to overcome a broken ball joint. Sometimes racing has a cruel fate for those. In the wake of heartbreak for one can come triumph for another, as all Nick Sanchez has to do now is bring the car home and finish the race. But what about that owner's title that we've been talking about? Well, this is where it starts to get really good. The last 60 laps would run green. Love and the number 20 are on the point and look to finally take down that number 18 in the owner's title. All they need to do now is get the win. Stay in front of the 18, that's all they need to do. However, there is a possible spoiler in all this. GMS Racing also entered the number 44 car with Truck Series winner and former ARCA champion Grant Enfinger. And with less than 20 to go, he along with Sammy Smith are reeling in the leader fast. Finally, with 4 laps to go, Grant Enfinger's there. And now we'll send it up to the booth for the final call to the finish.
Enfinger's run here 8 times, yet to win. 3 top 5 finishes, led a bunch of laps, and here he goes to the lead. The fans are cheering. Grant Enfinger has put on a show for the fans here in a return to ARCA Menards Series Racing. Jesse Love, though, he's not done yet.
They are side by side. What a finish. We're not done yet. 3 laps to go. We haven't seen the last of this. Sammy Smith is right there on Jesse Love's bumper.
Giving racing room. The drama could not be any greater right now. Jesse Love goes into turn 1. They touch. There goes Sammy Smith.
Wow. We thought the battle was between the 44 and the 20. Sammy Smith able to sneak on the inside and take the lead away from Jesse Love.
1 lap to go. Sammy Smith now has that bonus point.
Look at him sawing at that wheel. He is racing for the win. He is also racing for the title, the owner's title for Kyle Busch Motorsports with just 1 lap to go. And Sammy Smith wins the race. Holy Toledo.
Yeah, a little bit cheesy of a call there for a finish. Either way, a bump and run by Smith sends the leaders pinballing into each other and the number 18 to the lead for the final 2 laps. And that's all he needed to lock up the owner's title for a 3rd year in a row for the number 18 in Kyle Busch Motorsports. Meanwhile, after all the chaos and calamity is said and done, Nick Sanchez brings home his Chevrolet in 6th place and locks up the 2022 ARCA Menards Series Championship, beating fellow rookie Daniel Dye by just 14 points. But surprisingly, the action isn't over though, as the VMS number 20 isn't too happy with how the race finished out. We do get this kind of sick burnout though. No matter what, doing a burnout in the face of the guy you just beat is pretty badass no matter how you see it. That's just the start though, as some attempts at punches are thrown between Love and Smith, ending with Jesse getting carried away. In response, Sammy says it best.
Nothing personal there, but there was a shot to take it, and I took it.
As tempers cool down, there's also another champion to crown just down the straightaway for Nick Sanchez. He's done it. A season-long points battle and a race that ran down to the wire, and an average finish of just 6.3. A 10th better than his competitor Dye. That's the beauty in racing though. Sometimes you're in control, and sometimes fate has other plans. So while race fans out there on social media and in the real world will probably continue to dunk on ARCA all the time, we do have to acknowledge the good and the fun. It's not always doom and gloom as we tend to think. There are truly silver linings out there. This has been Down to the Wire, a recap of the 2022 ARCA Menards Series Championships. I'm Ben Branscombe, and I'll catch y'all later.
Just typical bonehead move by Drew. He's killed a couple of my cars here, and now he's killed one and wasn't even driving for it. I mean, just look at it, just pure lack of talent.